everyone, it's Rose. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I would like to talk about a common phenomena that occurs amongst readers, and that would be reading slumps. Personally, I'm in a reading slump more often than not. It's very annoying. So if you don't know what a reading slump is, it's basically just like a period that could last any amount of time in which you don't feel like reading. As I previously stated, I am in a reading slump more often than not, so I do know what and what doesn't work for me when I'm trying to get out of a reading slump, and so I wanted to share my knowledge with you. So I have a few tips that we're going to talk about in this video. So the first one I think would be the most difficult for people to try and do, and it's to just let the reading slump run its course. Just let it do its thing if you are just taking a break. Because sometimes that's all you need to do if you've been reading book after book after book and you're just feeling a little burnt out. Maybe you just need a break. This one would be hard for people who like live and breathe reading, and so like when you're not reading, all you're thinking about is how much you want to read. So this one can be the most difficult, but it's also probably the best option. My second tip is to try a new way of reading. So maybe you're feeling like you're in a reading slump because all you do is read books physically. So maybe go and try reading an ebook. Sometimes reading an ebook is easier than reading a physical book because you're not like daunted by maybe the size of the book that you're reading. Or maybe you want to try and listen to an audiobook so you're not having to give your full attention to reading this physical book. Like you could listen to an audiobook and like clean your room, or listen to an audiobook while you go for a walk. Sometimes it's easier to get through books just listening to it so you don't have to read it with your eyeballs. Personally, if I'm not feeling like I want to read a book physically, I'll gravitate towards ebooks more often than audiobooks. But when I do listen to audiobooks, normally I'm just playing Candy Crush the entire time that I'm listening to the audiobook. My next tip is to read something short. So that could be poetry, a short story, a kid's book, a graphic novel. Some people get the motivation to read by finishing a book. So by reading something short, you'll get through a book much faster and you'll get that boost of motivation once you finish that short book. My next tip is to read something from your favorite genre. Maybe you're feeling slumpy because you tried to read something outside of your comfort zone, or maybe you've just been reading stuff that you're not really enjoying that much. So by reading something that you know you'll love, for example, my favorite genre is romance, and most of the time I enjoy the romance books that I read. So by reading something out of your favorite genre, you're more likely to enjoy the story and be invested in it, and so you won't feel so slumpy because you'll be enjoying what you're reading. So my next tip is kind of the opposite of the last one, and it's to read something outside of your reading comfort zone. So maybe you're in a reading slump because you're reading too much of the same thing. So try reading something that you wouldn't normally read. My next tip is to reread a favorite book. This way you're already reading a story that you know, and you know that you'll love it when you're finished. My next tip is to spark interest. I have a story to go with this one. So 2 years ago, I was in a really bad reading slump. Like, it lasted for multiple months, and I was just getting kind of tired of waiting for it to do its thing. So I was trying like all these different ways to try to get out of it. And so what I did was I chose 4 books, and I read the first couple chapters of each of them, and whichever one was more interesting was the book that I tried to read. I've done it a few times the past couple years, and it was successful every time. I ended up finishing the book that I chose to read. So my next tip is another one that I feel like would be hard for some people, and it's to DNF books. DNF stands for did not finish, in case you didn't know. Don't be afraid to put down books that you are not really feeling, books that are not interesting to you, books that you don't like. If you don't like what you're reading, don't finish it. Don't force yourself to read a book that you are not enjoying. Reading is supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, you're just torturing yourself. I know people who strictly do not DNF books. I know people who only DNF books on occasion. I know people who DNF books like left and right. That's like one of the main things that can put you in a reading slump, is if you force yourself to read books that you do not like. So don't be afraid to DNF them. My last tip has to be the worst thing that you can do when you're in a reading slump, and I don't know why I'm suggesting it, but I know some people would just do it anyway. Just force yourself to read. Even if you don't feel like reading, just force yourself. I think at one point or another I tried to force myself. Like, I would like force myself to read at least like a chapter every day. Like, eventually I would finish a book. But really, like, reading is not supposed to be about like how many books can you read in a month or in a year. Reading is just supposed to be fun, and like, are you enjoying the books that you're reading? It's supposed to be about the quality of the books that you're reading. Anywho, those were all of my tips. If you have any helpful tips, leave them in the comments. I'm sure we would all benefit. I know I would. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. As always, my Instagram and Goodreads are linked in the description for you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.